Are you not entertained? Well, actually, yes, I was. So guys, welcome back to the channel. Right, Gladiator 2. Highly anticipated film for me this year. Obviously, a massive fan of that original movie. If you think of ITV2, you just think of The Mummy and Gladiator. But not complaining. Guys, obviously not as good as that original film. Let's just put that to one side and talk about this movie itself. Before we get into it, Ridley Scott. So, he's like a top 3 director for me. I absolutely love this guy. I love his no fucks attitude that he gives. I am delighted to say that I think this is Ridley Scott's best film since The Martian that came out in 2015. I mean, the guy is 86 years old, and it actually blows my mind that he's still releasing films on this mad epic scale. So I just think he's done like a pretty amazing job with this. Yeah, I liked it more than Alien Covenant and stuff like that. I just think this is one of his best films in recent memory. Before we get into what I liked and disliked about the film, I'll give you a plot summary provided from the interwebs. Years after witnessing the death of Maximus at the hands of his uncle, Lucius must enter the Colosseum after the powerful emperors of Rome conquer his home. With rage in his heart and the future of the empire at stake, he looks to the past to find the strength and honor needed to return the glory of Rome to its people. Let's just not bury the hatchet. This film, I think, is a banger. I absolutely loved it. Before we get into like my major highlights of the film, the cast. So, Paul Mescal as Lucius, I think delivers a fantastic performance here. He had big shoes to fill, obviously, but, you know, I think he almost got there. I was slightly unsure at first just because I haven't seen his prior work. I haven't seen After Sun or anything like that. I know he's been big on the indie circuit, but after watching this film, I'll be sure to be checking that stuff out. His line delivery in this film is quite, like, sort of cocky and arrogant. I don't know if I'm speaking out of term there. Especially when he's, like, speaking the likes of Denzel's character, who we'll get to in a bit, or when he's speaking to his fellow gladiators, or he has this one particular relationship that he has with, like, this medic of the gladiators that are healing the wounds and stuff like that. Their relationship in this film, I was a big fan of. Really enjoyed it. But one thing Paul Mescal has got to do in this film, it's a very physically demanding role. And my God, I think he did it with ease. Like, he was very convincing in these action scenes. And this is a very action-heavy film, which we'll get to. You know, there's certain hand-to-hand combat scenes in this film. And I was like, my God, this boy's got it, man. Like, I don't know what it is, but, like, I'm believing everything I'm seeing on the screen. Paul Mescal here has made me a believer, made me a fan. I will be checking out his other stuff. Denzel Washington's character, Marcus, I think it is also pretty fantastic in the role here. You know, could anyone else have done this role? Maybe, but it's Denzel, man. He's bringing his Denzel mannerisms to the film, which might be a little bit hit or miss for people, but you got to let Denzel cook, man. And if he's bringing his, like, sort of A game with the way he, like, handles himself and whatnot, I'm all good for it. I love Denzel's character. And prior to this film, I didn't really know where we were going to go with his character. He's got layers to him, man. Definitely. Wasn't just sort of one note. He's a bit schemy and stuff, which I wasn't fully expecting, but I thought Denzel did an amazing job. I know there's been some sort of awards talk out there, like getting Best Supporting Actor and whatnot for the Oscars. I don't know whether I'd go that far, but very enjoyable in this film. Pedro Pascal. Right. So, awesome in the movie, but I'm not going to lie, in the first 20 minutes of this film, because of the way his character is sort of set up, I was like, oh, I don't know whether this guy's being a little bit miscast here, but once you get into the film and you find out a little bit more about his character, you know, there's a reason why we're seeing Pedro Pascal in so many properties at the moment, because he's a bloody good actor, man, and he brings his game here, definitely. Had a great time watching him on screen. For a film that doesn't have a lot of emotion and stuff in it, there was a few scenes in this that sort of get me with Pedro Pascal. Really big fan. I thought he was awesome in the film. Connie Nelson, like, my God. She comes back as Lucilia. The thing is, you would not have thought that there has been 2 decades pass when you look at Connie Nelson. My God, she looks great. And as I was saying with Pedro Pascal, one of my weaknesses of this film is the lack of emotion, which we'll get to in a bit, but she brings the much needed emotional segments to this film, I found. Not going overboard with it or anything like that, but, really, really good in the film. Had a good time with Connie Nelson. We have the two evil emperors that are played by Joseph Quinn, who is on top form here. He's pretty disgusting in the role. Good on him for taking a role like this just before we're about to see him play Johnny Storm in the new Fantastic Four movie. It's just showing that Joseph Quinn has got a lot of layers to him, and I'll be watching out for his career, man. We also have Fred Hetchinger, definitely saying that wrong. He plays the other brother in this film, and if I'm not mistaken, I think this was originally supposed to be played by Barry Keoghan. Not gonna lie, would have much preferred that. Barry Keoghan, awesome actor, awesome actor. If you've ever seen Killing of a Sacred Deer, he can bring some real intensity to this sort of role, so he would have been really good. This guy, I mean, he was okay, right? I do think at certain points in this film, it was like he was in a whole different other movie. Yeah, so this film, man, is way more action-orientated than I thought it was going to be. And I'm absolutely not complaining about that. I think this is the first and foremost best positive thing about this film. If I was recommending it to someone, I'd just be like, look, it's not as emotional as that first film, but if you're into like big epic action swords and sandal movies, this one is definitely a 2 thumbs up. First scene particularly like sort of blew me away, and the sound design in there was like top notch. It's fascinating when you watch that first sequence in the film because Ridley Scott only shot that in 9 days. Come on, man, that is amazing stuff. I don't think there was one action scene in the movie that I wasn't into. Like everything in the Colosseum was great. We've got sharks, we've got huge rhinos, we've got crazy baboons. Look, CGI isn't the best part of this film, but I've seen a lot worse, and it never really took me out of it at any point. I was in for the ride. I was digging it. Yeah, wasn't great here and there. Like some of these animals didn't look real, of course not. I was having too much of a good time for that to take me out of it. It's just filmed with this excitement. Like I was like on the corner of my seat sometimes in this film. And it's helped by Paul Mescal because he's doing all these action sequences in a believable sort of manner if the stuff around him isn't that believable. Visually, there's some great stuff going on here, especially in the start when we're dealing with the afterlife. This was sort of something that was hinted on in the first movie, but I feel like they explore it a little bit more in this film and they give it this visual sort of look. I was digging it, man. I was a big fan. One thing that had me sort of like bite my nails a little bit before I watched this film was the fact that Hans Zimmer wasn't returning. Now, look, everyone was cooking to that high standard in that first film, but one of the main MVPs of that first movie is Hans Zimmer and that music. I mean, it was that good, the guy used it twice because there's some of the motifs, certain tracks and stuff that are definitely in that Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy, man. But, I can't blame him. I think it was a quick turnaround when he got asked to do Pirates of the Caribbean, so why not go in the back catalogue and get some banger tracks from Gladiator? I think if it was anyone else, we'd be giving him way more shit for that, but besides, the music in this is pretty decent. All I wanted was some motifs that were maybe used in that original film. I didn't want just a brand new score, and that's certainly not what we get here. There's certain things, rememberies or whatever you want to call them, that come back in. You're like, oh yeah, I remember that. It's all good stuff. Not as good. Like, I'm probably not going to listen to this score like I did that first movie separately from the film. Look, it did a good job. There's certain tracks in the end that I won't spoil and whatnot, but like at the end of the film, I was like, I'm happy. I'm happy with the music, and that was just one of my biggest worries before it. Like I said up top, I think the biggest problem that this movie has is that it just does not have that emotional impact to what the first film does. Am I really bothered? Not really. I was just having too much of a good time with this film. Like, it was a very exciting, thrilling time at the cinema. I applaud anyone who's got any sort of vague interest in that first movie or just likes these big sword and sandals epics. You need to see this one in the cinema. Yeah, guys, really love it. Would I want to see Gladiator 3? Probably not, but I didn't want to see a Gladiator 2 either, and I ended up having a really good time. Ridley Scott, you can't have that many films left in the canon to produce and make and direct. Gladiator 3, do we need it? I don't know, man. But I would take it. I'm going to give this a solid 4 stars out of 5. It equates to about an 8 out of 10 for me. I'll definitely be getting this on 4K when it releases. I may even go and watch this again in the cinema because I know my brother's a big fan of that OG one. I'll probably want to check it out with him and see what he thinks. That is my review of Gladiator 2. Big fan. It was very entertaining. I'll see you next time.